Four-star folks, if you don't know them, they're going to make an effort to get to know everybody here. And I'm going to hand it off to David. Thank you.
Great, thanks. First, a little bit of housekeeping. One is, let me get these names. We have an Ann Scobler, Terry Morgan, or Joanne Owen in the audience. Good, because we're going to look at their signs later, and it's not going to be great for them. The second thing is to expand on what was already said about 9 Threads. We, like you said, we're integrated marketing. We're full service. The one piece of the puzzle of a full service agency that we don't handle necessarily is PR, but we do everything from design all the way through websites, merging technology and traditional media to leveraging those to improve small businesses. So if you know anything about or know anyone who needs those sort of services, or you yourself, please feel free to give us a call, and that'll be my whole pitch on that. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about QR codes. Is anyone already using QR codes in your practice? What do you, are you just using them on your signs, using them on your business cards? Both? Okay. And are they going out to your website or to particular listings?
Well, the listings.
Great. Okay. There's a couple of brokers out there who have really integrated processes for that. It appears as if Cutler is one of those. And Keller Williams, I believe, is the other one that is pretty good in this area. But for the rest of us, until such time as that happens, I'm going to tell you about 9 tools that are free, completely free out there to use, that you can use to leverage QR codes in your business practice. The first one that we'll talk about is not working, is the QR code itself. What is it and how does it work? You probably have seen these. The QR code is like a dot matrix little square. It's not very pretty, but it does the job. What it is a matrix barcode, a 2-dimensional barcode that's readable by QR code scanners, which are typically resident on your mobile phones or smartphones, and sometimes also iPod touches with a camera. How they work. It's actually quite simple. All you really have to know is, the most important one is probably your timing pattern. Actually, they're all quite important, but you don't need to know any of this. This is all, I don't even understand it entirely. All I know is that, those 3 boxes, so no matter which way you have this on your sign or your business card, which way you go ahead and scan it, it's going to scan correctly. Those 3 boxes kind of give it the perspective. What you do need to know, or real simple, is these are the ones you see at the grocery store. They read data in one direction only. So there's a relatively limited amount of data that you can have in this scanner code. This reads in 2 directions. So these same little pixels in this direction means something different as these pixels in that direction. So you can put a much greater quantity of data in the same amount of space. And now these are the third-party tools. Number 2 is a third-party application called Postlets. Is anybody using Postlets right now? Okay, Postlets is a really great little powerful tool that allows you to make dedicated websites, URLs. URL is at www.whatever.com for an individual listing. Postlets looks like this. So it's totally free. You get started, you put in a little bit of information about yourself, but then it's really all about your listing. Here's a listing that I made for my house. My name, or the seller's name, my phone number, my email address, because that'll be linked on the Postlets website, the street address, and it says it will be mapped. There was a little checkbox that says that in my URL in my little website, I want to map to the location, and that's done through Google Maps. City, state, zip, and the category. I also got to put in my asking price, which is $171,000. So if you guys bring a buyer at asking price, I'll pay commission on both sides of that deal. And we're 1919 was a year built. If I'm on the multiple listing, I can put in the number. I am not. It's a FSBO, let's say. The problem with Postlets, because you can take that to another third-party service and generate a QR code and put that on your sign. The problem with Postlets is it looks like this when you hit it with your cell phone, with your QR code scanner. As you can tell, this is not very user-friendly. You can't read anything at all in here. You can't really even see the picture. It's tiny. All you really get is the address. And you're already there because you're clicking it, right? So that leads us to the third of our 9 tools that you can use, and it's called View It. It's currently in beta, which means that it's actually not released for common consumption, but that word has come to mean released for common consumption. I think they use beta in there, to be honest, so that when you detect bugs, they can say, it's just a beta. Don't worry about it, but it works great. This is View It. View It takes the URL that you've already created with Postlets, or anything for that matter. One other thing about Postlets that you already know but nobody else does is that when I put in my 705 Wellesley, it auto-populated all sorts of things. It auto-populated how many beds and baths I had. It took it all out of public records and auto-populated it. So that was very cool. Back to View It. I put in the URL. Maybe I made it on Postlets. I put in the street address, the city, state, blah, blah, blah. Type a code, save and continue. And now that same URL looks like this when I hit it with my iPhone. So I can read everything. Again, 171 grand. Just it's a nice neighborhood, and your customers will be very happy. You bring the buyer at 171, we'll talk about it. Google. This is a URL shortener. Again, a URL is that website address, www.whatever.com. Google has a shortener for that. So when you make that Postlets or even the View It URL, it's going to be very long. The longer, the more information that you put into a QR code, the more complex it is, and therefore the harder it may be to scan. It's a very good idea to shorten that URL using a number of different services. The first one we'll talk about is Google. This is a URL shortener. You cut and paste your long URL here, you shorten it, boom, and it looks like this. What is that? 5 letters after the Google. I'm sorry? Still 171, that's correct. Yeah, I'm not ready to lower the price quite yet. This is only up here for 23 hours, so but I've already got, look at that, I've already got 4 bytes. So, and that's the cool part about the Google thing. That's a cool thing about Google in general, is that they're really, really good at telling you information about what's going on your website. So if you go to the next screen here, this is a little bit of information about my particular QR code. By shortening it, it automatically generated this QR code. I can right-click on that. I can save it to my desktop. I can use it in any format I want. What's also very cool about QR codes is that because they're just blocks, you ever take a photo off the internet and you blow it up and it looks like hell, that's never going to happen with a QR code because it's all straight lines. So this QR code that's generated in, maybe in 1 inch by 1 inch on my screen, I can make that as the size of a football field and it'll look just as good. Anyway, here's what it's telling me about my activity so far. So the day that I started it, I clicked it once just to see that it worked, and it did. And then yesterday in the office, we clicked it about 4 different times. Different people around the office did, so that I could illustrate this. This tells you a little bit about your users. Linux is going to be an Android-based phone, and iPhones, 2 of them hit this. These are the kind of browsers they're on. I don't know what this means to you, but you may find that these metrics actually mean something, that the more iPhones you're getting, you're in a different sort of area than you do in Android, or this one Safari, this actually Linux has to be not in Android, because this one mobile is coming out of like a flip phone, like Motorola Razr or something like that. So those metrics may mean something to you in the long run. But it's also important to realize that you don't need to know this. You don't need to understand what your traffic is if you don't need it for your particular business. It's just that this stuff exists. This is also a URL shortener. It's just like goo.gl, except for one thing that I think is very cool. If I'm going to use that shortened URL in any other marketing effort other than just making a QR code, I can customize it. So this one is bit.ly.chez-david or /Chez David. It's customized. But again, all that same information automatically generates the QR code, tells me how many clicks I'm getting to this bit.ly. Now I can also, through bit.ly, generate different QR codes that are very, very close to this. Might be Chez David 2, because I have that QR code on, I don't know, Aqueduct, because I'm on a corner, and I have another one on Wellesley, because I want to know what traffic patterns are like even there. Am I getting people who are on their way to work, or am I getting somebody who's actually local and they're on the smaller street that's on, you know, it's basically how you cut it up. You sort of have to build your own metrics platform and what this stuff means to you, but it's all available out there, and this is all free. The number 6 is a website called QRStuff, qrstuff.com. The other, or the previous ones have all been about putting a URL for your listing on your listing, right out in the front yard. QRStuff is where you can build a QR code that does other things, not just sends you to a website. You can absolutely do that here, but you also have a whole lot of different options. You can do a telephone number. So maybe you just want that QR code to launch their phone and boom, they're calling you. Or you can do an email message, a short message, so it sends them a text that says something. This one I thought was kind of cool, a Google Maps location. Maybe you have a QR code that says, you know, it's 2 blocks from the school and it's in the neighborhood behind here, boom, and here comes the map, and you can see that your child can walk to school no problem, even though they're only 7, because it's 2 blocks away. There's a PayPal buy now link, social media. The one that I did go through and do, just for illustration purposes, is an email message. This is what I thought of here, just I don't know, a for instance. Let's say you get a call and somebody wants to list with you. You don't know anything about their house. You may not even know their address. You know they're on the corner of X, Y, or Z. You can have these already generated in your car with an email address that says you want it sent to you, whatever the subject is. Maybe all you know is corner of Wellesley and Aqueduct, and the body says, tell me more. When they click that QR code, it will automatically launch their email client, and all they have to do is hit send, and it sends you an email right now, which of course is going to have their sent from information, and then you have a lead. Somebody that you can follow up with, even though you didn't have the time to fill out a postlet, go to view it, and generate a QR code and have it printed and ready to go. This could be done before the fact. The 7th tool you're going to need or need to understand is the scanner, the actual scanner on your phone. If you're carrying an Android device, most of them are coming pre-loaded with a scanner. iPhones do not. I have appropriately 9 different scanners on my phone. This is the one that works every single time. It works so well that on an iPhone, you press the bottom button and the top button to take a picture, a screen cap of what you're seeing. It took me like, I don't know, 10 tries to get this screen cap because it works so well that as soon as I put it up to that QR code, it launched my browser. So I kept doing this number, and I finally got this. And this is what it looks like. Literally, hold your camera up, which is on the other end of this, to the QR code, and it launches your browser, or it launches your email client, or whatever it is that that QR code is designed to do. Your 8th tool is digital strategy. I put my own personal logo here because that's what I do. We have a philosophy at 9 Threads that we're all so concerned, especially in our marketing, about tactics. Oh man, I need a postcard, or I need to put a QR code out there, that we fail to remember that there needs to be a plan. Because a goal without a plan is a wish, right? So think about what you're going to do with a QR code. And I know we've talked just about what you can do with it on a sign here, but there's a lot of possibilities. And let's talk about that one example of what the state of real estate signs is out there in the market. And this is why I asked about Ann Skoblar. Ann Skoblar, this is in my neighborhood. This is about a block away. They're asking 184, by the way, so it's by way of a comp to my house. It's my house much better condition. Anyway, this is what you see all the time out there. The info box out front, and this works. There's nothing wrong with this approach at all. It works I'm sure for all of you. It worked for me when I was buying a house. It's a fine way to do things. What does not work, in my opinion, is this number. This is literally 3 doors down from that other one. They're slightly less. It's about 168, but it's in terrible condition. It's blocking the logo, and everybody knows the Howard Hanna logo. Nobody goes by this not understanding what that sign is. However, it's just not a great presentation. Both of these things could be mitigated by using a QR code. This house, also about a half a mile from me, is $1,150,000. So again, by way of comp, I'm asking slightly less than $1 million less than this. She's got it all going on here, right? So she's got it properly faced, so if somebody's rolling by, they can click that scanner, and I tried and it works. She's got it this facing the street as you're coming to it or going, the other way. Everything is working here with the exception of one thing. When you click that QR code, this is what you get. It is definitely the listing. That's all correct. But you can't see anything on here. Even if you have it in your hand and you're trying to hit the, more photos, it's such a tiny button. It's down here that it's almost unusable. So she would do well to go out to view it, put in this URL, and it would create a mobile-friendly web page for her. So just to recap on those first 8 tools. First you decide your strategy, and then you choose your tactics. So for that standard sign in the front yard using a QR code, build your listing at Postlet, go to View It, and make a web-friendly version of that. And what's cool about View It, by the way, is that if I make a Postlet and then a View It, and I make my QR code out of this View It URL, if I hit it with my iPhone, it shows me that web-friendly or that mobile-friendly version. But if I hit it with my iPad, which is, of course, a larger screen, it actually shows me the Postlet version. So it is detecting what browser somebody's using. So let's say, 6 months from now, or actually 2 months from now, there's a new iPhone coming out. Best guess that we have is it's going to be a larger screen, probably by as much as ½ an inch. Maybe this Postlet looks better on that iPhone, but the View It looks better on the older iPhone. It will detect that, and it will serve the best possible user experience. And that's very cool. From View It or Postlet, even if you didn't, or you have to make a QR code, make it at Google or at Bitly. Both of those are going to allow you to track it. And at Bitly, you're going to be able to make a customized URL, and more to the point, you're going to be able to make multiple URLs if you want to use that same View It on different media. So maybe you've sent out a postcard about it, or on your information sheet that's also hanging next to your QR code. If you have another initiative, so let's say it's on your business card, or it's on your car, or you're sending out a mass direct mail looking for listings, you can go to QR Stuff and do all manner of different data sets and make a QR code out of it. But again, go out there to Bitly or Google, generate your QR code there. Even though you've built one at QR Stuff, use Bitly and Google to track those clicks because QR stuff does not have a tracking mechanism. The ninth tool is creativity. We talked about nothing but that sign out in the front yard, but we used it, I hope you realize, as the most common use case. There's a lot of different things you can come up with. I like to tell this one story about in New York, where we also have an office. There was just this big QR code in a vacant window space. And I think it may have said something. It may have said, like, you're being watched. So it kind of got you to click that thing. And when you clicked it, nothing happened, but about, I don't know, 3-4 minutes later, you got this text message. And it had nothing but a little URL, and you clicked it, and there was a picture of you taking that photo. So what was happening was they had a camera somewhere that was time-stamping photos, and then it matched up the timestamp of when you took that photo and went to that URL, matched the two, and sent you a photo of you. And it was for an indie film that was like, I don't even know what it, I've never seen it, but it was like a George Orwell 1984, you're being watched. Now, to get that photo, I had to put in an email address. And then I got, at that email, probably 6 emails over the course of the next 3-4 months telling me what little theater around New York that this film was playing at. So, I mean, there's just a very creative way to use a QR code. I'm not sure that you guys want to really hide your listings like that. I'm not sure that, you know, the secretive nature of indie film promotion is necessarily in your bag of tricks. It shouldn't be, but it's an illustration. This is a really cool QR code. This photo is taken from an angle that makes you want to believe that this incredibly enterprising real estate agent said, you know what, I'm going to eschew everything. I'm not even putting a sign except for this QR code, but what you didn't see is right over here, yeah, there's all the traditional stuff. But I thought it was a really cool way to represent a QR code. It's certainly eye-catching. I personally don't like that little tag that's always down here, hey, get a QR scanner. While I understand the sentiment, I'm not sure somebody who has no idea what to do with that is going to download a QR scanner because there's a little thing down here that tells them to do so. So I'd go with the people who already know what it is, and I think this is just a cool way to do it. Makes you want to click it. Oh, by the way, that house is also in my neighborhood, and I think it's in the 150s, but it needs a new roof, and from what I understand, it's all galvanized plumbing. So, to recap, 705 Wellesley, this is my house. It's got this great fence. Again, 171 if you bring a buyer. Both ends of the deal. This is it in the winter. It looks great at Christmas. And it's really inviting. I have a ghost. And that's all I have to say in a structured format, and I'm way better in like question and answer, so I'd love to open it up and maybe answer some questions. You had your hand up first.
This whole gig about selling your
Absolutely. I'm not even hiding that.
What QR scanner do you recommend downloading? Because obviously there's various ones out there.
Right. What is your, what sort of phone do you have?
I have an iPhone.
Scan. It's just called Scan. Yeah. Let me go back to that. That's the app. It's called Scan, and it's outrageously effective. Yes?
Who is the registry of the Q codes? Is there one?
No, it was originally developed by Toyota for the automotive parts industry to keep track of that. I'm going to say the mid-'80s, they made that open source. So they just let anybody at all do it. And it's huge in Japan. It's caught on pretty much in the rest of the world, and it's just really gaining ground here in the United States. So it's totally free. If you're so inclined or know somebody so inclined, Google has built an API, which is what is that? Automatic program, or it's a programming interface. So in other words, they have a set of code that you can embed in your own application to use their QR code generator.
Once the code is assigned to a URL,
Yes.
how does it come off? off of the registry so that nobody else can use it?
No. It's not really assigned to a URL. What's happening here is it's encoding the information. So your name isn't assigned to you. You don't have like a trademark on that particular order of letters, and that's really all that's happening here. It's a particular order of pattern that means the URL, so it's being decoded.
Your concern is that it'll go to the wrong place.
Well, no, I'm concerned that you have 10 people using the same Q code, if that's possible. Is it possible for 10 people to wind up with the same code?
That is not possible, and this is why, because the URL itself is assigned.
Is it that? Okay.
Right, so, Coca-Cola.com, there's no chance of having Coca-Cola.com.
That's embedded in the Q
That
code.
is embedded right there.
Be reduplicated.
Right, in fact, to the machine, that says 9threads.com or whatever.
The QR code that you would have specific for a listing,
There it is.
as that information is changed in the listing, it's an active QR code, correct?
Yes, because the QR code, again, says the URL. It doesn't say the information in it. Now, to go back to QR stuff, indeed, you can do just text. So if you wanted to say to somebody, if you wanted them to scan it and it would just pop up some text in their text editor that says, 705 Wellesley, 2.5 baths, 4 bedrooms, you can do that. That would be in the QR code. So if they, put a shower in that half bath, you're pretty much out of luck.
Or if you change prices, what I
If you change prices, if that QR code says change the price, yes, it would be in the code itself. But if it goes to a URL, you're all right.
How do you make that QR sign that goes in front of the house?
Well, there's a number of different ways. I don't know how you guys are building your the signs that you actually put out there. Not the post hole digger ones, but the ones that are, I don't know what's that stuff called? Corrugated, yeah, the corrugated plastic. But I'm sure whoever's printing those could print it. But if you remember at QR stuff, which is that number 6? Yeah, okay. Down here, I don't know where my thing went, but down here, they actually are what do you call it? Well, they're partnering with somebody who's printing them on hats, a map of Africa, whatever the hell that is, a bag. I'm quite certain that if you went to that on other stuff, you could get it there. That's a tie. All right. You like that, don't you? Good. I'm glad I was able to amuse you. Tell me that doesn't look like Africa. Because you're sitting in the front row. I bet they'd print it on a map of Africa if you asked them. In the back row.
You got it on a sign, and you want to find out who took a picture of it. Can you run through that again?
Okay. Who, in particular, you're not going to be able to tell you who. I mean, it's not going to say Dave Sutula took a picture of that. But it will tell me some of my demographic information, unless you use QR stuff. Where did my... Oh, there it is. Right here, there's an email message. So I could, by making a QR code that, hold on a second here, that uses the email message format, I could put in my email address, whatever subject I want, and tell me more. That will send an email to you from them, which will have their sender information. So that way, you would know immediately. That would be like a contact me rather than show me the listing on my smartphone. Does it make sense?
They have to say yes and send it to you.
It depends. It depends. Actually, we have a girl in the office. Her name is Julie Gibson. She does our email marketing campaigns. Her Android, whatever scanner app she was using, and I believe it was Red Laser, she scanned an email one, and it just did it. It didn't ask her for an opt-in, which I think is sort of scary, but it's kind of cool for you guys. Go ahead.
You said that the QR code for listings might automatically populate through county records. Many times those are incorrect. Correct.
Well, you're doing it.
You can correct them.
Oh yeah, you can correct it. So like for instance, mine is actually incorrect. If you noticed on one, it said 1919 and the next one said 1920. Did you notice that? I corrected it to 1919 because I know for a fact that it was built in 1919, but the records say 1920. So I was able to go in and just correct it. On the second one that I did, when I did view it, I didn't realize it and I failed to correct it. But you can. Absolutely. So let's just for kicks go back, see if we can find that. Okay, there's postlets. Yeah, so unfortunately I don't have the screen cap from that, but every one of these fields I was able to, even though it told me, I guess it's not in here, but it was, you know, it said single family house, it told me 2.5 baths. I actually looked at it and said 2.5. And indeed I have a tub that we don't use, and I thought it was wrong for a second. But it's, the tub is usable, by the way. It's not that, it's completely, it's fine. We just don't. And I changed this to 1919.
Is SnapTag a QR product or is it a different product?
I'm not familiar with SnapTag. Can you tell me more about it?
It's same barcode kind of thing.
Does it look just like that?
It doesn't look, it's a circular.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's circular. Okay. Here's what's going on with that. There are a number of different products out there that are 2D barcodes. QR code is what I'm talking about here specifically. As we pointed out before, it's open source. In other words, everybody can use it. Every scanner does a QR code. However, there are other ones like SnapTag, and Microsoft has their own as well that stores exponentially more, maybe 100 times more information than you can get in a QR code, but you have to pay Microsoft to generate one, and you have to pay them for the app to read it. So what I'm talking about here is the most ubiquitous possible code, and I would recommend you stay away from SnapTag because I know Scan won't do it. None of the circular ones, and they look way cooler. In fact, if you grab Frank and I's card on the way out of here, you'll notice on the back of our cards we have our QR code that goes to our website. I wanted desperately to use a circular code, and it's just there's no margin in it for us. I have a blog post out on 9threads.com, and my number one, it's 9 things to consider. The number one thing is choose ubiquity. Most people have it. Most people are starting to understand what it is. Just stick with what's working.
One of the things that I run into a problem is ordering signs and then having these QR codes that only work for one listing. Through this QR stuff,
Yes.
customize one, can I make some a little bit more specialized that are gonna feed where I want them to so I can reuse my QR code signs?
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, I get it because you're buying 10 or 12 at a time. I would, and I apologize because I don't know. I'm sure there's a product, but I don't know what it is. If I were you, I would come up with a way to generate those on the fly. Some sort of product that you can slip something that costs you nothing. Maybe you can print it at home. Certainly you can print it at Kinko's in there. If you want to generate something to a single listing. If you want to do something that's a bunch of them, then maybe you print out the email address one, or there's other, well, back to QR stuff. You can put your V card in there. You can do all sorts of different things.
there's not necessarily a way for me to make a bunch of generic URLs that I'm gonna use that's gonna direct them to where I decide to direct them to.
Well, okay, actually, all right. I didn't think of this at the time I was putting this together, but there is.
When a website's busy, if I just want to go to that one house, the same way, that's the concept.
Okay.
Rather than having to go to my website.
Here, how many listings do you have?
20-some.
Okay, 20 some. What if you set up a postlet where it was, because you can do this, where you can view other postlets by you, where it was your whole repertoire. If you have 25, if you have 22, if you have 8, they're all there. They'd have to, it require the user one more step to say, oh, I'm interested in the one on Wellesley. But at a minimum, they're looking at your 20 listings. So there is a way to do that through here where it's all just your stuff and there's a separate URL for that.
David, since you can print out the Q code and there's a label for everything, if you go into Office Max.
Sure, Avery.
They've got labels that are weather resistant, they're press apply, Q code for that specific listing, just put it in the corner.
And I think that's a great way to do if you have a info sheet or 3 sheets stapled together. That's not as easy when you want somebody to click it from their car or not have to get out. But again, you're talking about what? 20 minutes and $5 at Kinko's to do that if you figured out how to make it work.
All you do is convert it to a JPEG and they'll do whatever you want with it.
Sure. And actually, it comes out of here either PNG or JPEG. So
So, a QR code can only have one unique data element associated.
that's correct because the QR code again is encoding data, it's not assigned to a set of data.
So when you showed that QR stop, all those things you can only use one, couldn't use multiple.
Correct.
An email address or a website or a.
Exactly, because what's happening here, if you remember those first screens, is that there is a set of data that sits right up in here that tells the QR code reader what sort of data that is. Is this an email message? Is it a URL?
Right, so essentially, I'll put it, is if you wanted to do a mailing for the same listing, or something, you could go in and generate other ones, and you would use that QR code on the mailing, and you'd use a different QR code on that listing if you wanted them to take them to a website for it.
Yeah, and you don't have to.
Right.
We're really big into, as a marketing company, tracking. We want to know how that direct mail is working, not just how the campaign is working if I'm selling. So I would make a different QR for each media type. But you could just use the same QR code that sends you to a listing or to whatever, the email address.
What would you use, what application for the BlackBerry if you were downloading that?
I would use the Apple Store and go buy an iPhone. I'm sorry. No, I know. Yeah, no, the iPhone 5 is the one I was talking about. It's probably a little bigger screen. I'm pretty excited about that too. But for the BlackBerry, we went over this in the office, and yeah, they do.
AT&T automatically, it's part of the package.
Right. It's probably in there somewhere because everybody with a BlackBerry in our office, which is 2 people, unfortunately, still have BlackBerries, and they both have the QR code reader already installed. However, I know that Red Laser, which is a well-used application, and is downloadable for all the platforms. So if yours doesn't, for whatever reason, Red Laser is the name of that app.
Download the latest software for your BlackBerry.
Yeah, or right, update your firmware. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, there was a joke going around that RIM, BlackBerry, they set out, what do they do? 20% of their staff they've completely let go. They've laid them off. And the joke was that the CEO announced that, and at the bottom of the email it said, "Send for my iPhone." So, it might be true. I thought it was a joke, but go on.
Does that have to be completely flat, like, the way they advertise on shirts and stuff like this because of the...
I'm telling you, man, that scan, when we walked around the office yesterday and everybody was using their individual scanners, a lot of people were like, doing the thing and making sure they got it. But the scan app I'm using, like I said, is so good that, yeah, I crinkled up a piece of paper. I did it on an angle. It's unbelievable how well they have their corrective action set up in that application. So I got to believe that scan is ahead of the curve because it's just, just in using it, I know it is. So as QR codes get more ubiquitous, QR scanners will get better, and it won't matter. That one I showed you, that $1 million house that's on Merriman Road, I literally just drove by it to see if it worked out of my passenger window. So my arm was still in the car, and I hit it, and it brought up that URL. So, But again, you know, and here's something, a cautionary note on that. We're talking a lot about the application that you're using. You have no idea what the person on the street is using. So while it doesn't matter maybe in the future, and certainly doesn't now for some people, you still have to think about that usability, that ergonomic factor. Try to make it arm level. Try to, you know, put it on the tree lawn instead of on the regular lawn to get it closer to the car. You know, do whatever you can to make sure that somebody's able to hit it. And I saw a bunch, and I don't know, it's been maybe 2 months that we've been thinking about doing this. So driving around, every time I saw a realtor sign with a QR code, I thought about it. And so many people are putting the QR code in the same orientation as the regular sign, that the, you know, post hole digger sign. Well, that doesn't help me. I still have to get out, so I might as well pick up a sheet of paper if I'm getting out. If I don't have to get out of the car and I just want to hit it, boom. It's far better if it's facing the street, because that's how I'm going to use it. Anyone else? So how many people in here now, there was 3 people who were using them. How many people are like considering actually implementing QR codes? That's awesome. You know, I also want to give you another cautionary note, because so many people, especially in our line of business, they're really fixated on that quick, you know, response. What is, by the way, that's what QR code means, by the way, it's quick response code. But they're worried about that quick hit. What did my new website, how much traffic am I getting? This is a long-term play. Even though they're out there and you've seen them 1,000 times, far more than I have, because you guys are looking for that sort of thing, they're not being, you'll still be ahead of the curve if you put them out there. The user population is still a little bit behind the 8 ball. They're not out there actively doing it, but it will get there. And we have test case, and it's called Japan. Everybody uses QR codes in Japan. I mean, they use them as readily as they use any other piece of technology, as readily as they'll read a sign. Because oftentimes what's happening is it's things like this PayPal Buy Now link, or a text message that says, you know, 50% off if you show this at the salon at the top of the escalator. So there's, once people get too used to that because they know there's something in it for them, they'll start using it for all sorts of different information, including you know, your real estate listings. So you may get 10, 20 clicks out of it, but it's 10, 20 clicks. Go ahead.
I was just thinking that right now, we'd probably be playing to the under 40 market. Anybody over 40 probably.
That's as
I'm talking about buyers.
and sellers. And you know what? And honestly, as a seller, I want to know what my agent, the listing agent, is going to do to market my property. And that's just one more thing. And as I live in the last week of my 39th year, I really appreciate that cutoff.
By the way, there's an alternative to getting older.
Is it death? Oh.
Off your house if we use the QR code.
I'd accept a buyer at $169,900.
Can I ask a question from the advertising agency side versus the
Yes.
IC side? And I get concerned about this all the time. We're getting very adept at providing a hell of a lot of information. And in many cases, we're providing so much information that you're pulling that contact away from you.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that argument. I've read it online from real estate agents as well. However, my other side of that coin would be, you know, a set of eyeballs is a set of eyeballs. Are you really, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody in this room, but are you really that great of a salesman that you're going to sell somebody that they didn't want anyway? You know what I mean? And by the way, all that information is available online as well.
I think that's important. I think the tracking part of it is probably the
Yeah.
most important part, because you may have somebody, I'm not in the residential side, but you may have somebody looking at a particular property. That property doesn't fit them at all. But the fact
True.
that you're able to capture them in your database, you can now get back and qualify them a little further.
And to, I don't know her name, but she made a point here earlier that we talked about, maybe the single listing, and this is something you have to decide, is not the killer application for this technology for you. Maybe it's the base listing. So somebody who hits that, and it's totally wrong for them, but maybe there's something right in the other 18 listings that you have at that given moment. And hell, maybe you work partnerships and you want to put somebody else's listings on there, or you'd love to sell that house because you work in that neighborhood. There's nothing stopping you from making a postlet for a listing you don't even have. Oh. No, well, no, I'm not saying go put a QR code on their what do you call it, on their lawn. I'm saying that in your postlet, in your like repertoire, maybe you categorize it. These are my listings, and these are listings in neighborhoods I love to work in. You know, you don't. Yeah, you don't put anything on their lawn. I mean, I would, but you probably shouldn't. Right. That's actually a great idea I just came up with. That's what I'm going to do in my neighborhood. I'm going to put my QR code on all the comps, or all the other properties. So there you have it.
David, I want to thank you. Let's give David a hand. I know I personally learned a lot today about QR.